Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. My name is Michael Barth. This is Owner Stories. It's Tuesday. I'm recording this episode very, very late. I'm actually recording it. I'm going to give it away. I haven't been very organized. I've been very busy with other things going on, but I'm recording this on Monday at 6:46 p.m. here in Sydney. I'm about to connect, with David, who lives up in the Hunter Valley. David and I have chatted over DMs before. David's got a good story. He's got a really, really, really nice 911, one that we all chase after, all want one. I think most of us want one. A lot of us want one. I mean, it's a great, it's a great 911, and you would have seen it in the title what it is. I'm not going to give it away. We'll let David introduce it. But yeah, so I'm recording this very, very late. So I'm going to finish the recording with David, and then I'm going to edit, and then I'm going to get it up for the Patreon members. If you haven't been to Patreon before, we have a Patreon page, PorscheCooled, patreon.com/PorscheCooled. If you go there, you can help support the podcast, help keep us talking, help these owner stories keep going, help us buy more equipment, etc. And you can join PorscheCooled Exclusive, PorscheCooled Exclusive Plus for as low as $2 a month. Every little bit helps. If you can support us there, that would be fantastic. Anyway, owner stories. I'm not going to talk too much in the beginning because I think we're going to fill the hour with David's story. So let me just get David on the line through Zoom and let's start talking about his PorscheCooled owner story. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Owner Stories. I forgot to say it in the intro. We're at number 61. This is number 61 of the Owner Stories series. I think I might have mentioned before I introduced David, I think I might have mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I'm thinking about doing another series which is similar to Owner Stories, but I guess it's with a different type of Porsche person. So I'm sort of tying that up with people in Sydney at the moment. So that'll be coming in the new year. I don't know whether it's going to be 3 episodes a week, but there'll definitely still be 2, I think, but there definitely won't be 3, that's for sure. All right, so Owner Stories. I got a good one today. I've been meaning to get David on Owner Stories for a while. David, welcome to the podcast. David's coming in from the Hunter Valley in New South Wales in Australia, not that far from where I am really. A couple hours away, that's about it. David, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Michael. Pleasure to be here.
I'm glad you can come on. And, everyone's already seen in the title what car you are driving at the moment, what your current 911 is. For some reason, out of superstition, I never like to mention it. I always like the owner to mention it. But you're one of the first people I've had on with this car. No one else has been on with this GT3 variant, I will call it.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're pretty rare. Well, in Australia, it varies between people. Somewhere between 20 and 30 are in Australia, and even like in America and in the UK, I think there's only about 70 in the UK, and it might be 600 or 700 in America, something like that.
Yeah, it's a very special car. We're going to get into that very, very shortly. But before we go there, David, let's start at the very beginning because we've got a bit to get through. Let's start at the very beginning about your first memories of Porsche. You just told me off recording you've owned a few cars, including BMWs, which we can talk about. But let's go back to that first memory. Is there a first memory you have of seeing a Porsche? Like, did you have friends that owned them? Did anyone in your family own one? Or was it just something you saw on the street when you were growing up? What are the first memories you have of seeing a Porsche and thinking, maybe one day I could get one of those?
Well, more when I was growing up, I was more like muscle cars and things like that. Falcons and GT Falcons and Commodores and Tiranas and those sort of things. And It was only when I moved out of home, I moved in with 3 Kiwi guys, and one of the guys I moved in with was just mad about 911s. If you were driving in with a car with him, he'd go, "Oh, look, 911," or even if you went past a billboard and the clock was 911, he'd go, "Oh, 911." Well, that's must be, Unfortunately, he's never got a 911, but that was the first real memory of, I was probably in my early 20s when he was talking about 911s. And so really, until I bought my first, decided to get my first Porsche, I didn't really, you could say, lust after a 911, you could say, until I really got into cars later in life.
So you said you like the muscle cars, the Australian muscle cars and whatever. So what was the first, when you started, seriously, making some money and thinking, okay, I'm going to get a car that I really like. What was the first sort of memorable car that you purchased that you still think about today?
Well, you know what this car is. It's, and the Australian viewers were. It was a 1988 Walkinshaw Commodore, a replica, homologation special they built for Bathurst, the one with the big bird bath whale tail spoiler on the back.
Yep.
And I bought that for $27,500, which back then was a lot of money when you could buy a house for $70,000 or something like that. And I had that for a couple of years, and unfortunately got married, needed the money to buy a house, and had to sell it. But that was a great car I had for probably about 2 years, and nowadays they sell for anything up to $200,000.
Wow. Was that a new car when you bought it, or was it used?
It was only 1 year old.
Wow.
1 year old, and it was a beautiful sounding engine. Used to love driving it, a manual transmission. As I say, nowadays they're very sought after by, say, the baby boomer type people that couldn't afford them in the when they were around. And nowadays, but to say nowadays, up to over $200,000 for one of those cars, and one of those cars you would have kept if you could.
Exactly. Did one of those come up for sale recently? I thought I saw one of those somewhere on last
I think
year.
You probably would have been on somewhere like Dutton's or the Classic Throttle Shop or something like that. Yes, there's been one or two.
I think. Sorry for interrupting. I think Classic Throttle had one. Yeah.
It probably was, and as I say, they're not an overly powerful car. They're probably quick calculation. They're probably only 250 horsepower, 270 horsepower engine back, out of a V8 back in those days. But just the sound of the induction noise on that car was really nice, and people stroke them nowadays, and which unfortunately ruins the originality, you could say, of the car. But there's lots of replicas as well. But it was a lovely car.
Yeah, and international listeners have to sort of realize, I guess it's like, special edition Mustangs or special edition Camaros, or, I don't know what it is in Europe, but it's like Holden had that following, didn't it? Had that huge following because of Mount Panorama, because of the race. It was always that Ford sort of Holden rivalry here when I was growing up. It was always like, who do you like? It was like the football team sort of thing. Do you like Ford? Do you like Holden? I had friends that had old, going back, had old GTR XU1s, which are worth a fortune now as well, the Tirana. So, there's lots of great old cars out there, that's for sure. Okay, so you got the first memorable car. It's an Australian car. It's a Commodore. It's a very special one. What is another one that comes along before you start getting into the Porsche thing?
Probably the next one would have been the E39 M5 BMW I had. It was when I got the car, I bought it from a dealer in Queensland, and I thought it was all good, and I just took it to an independent. And the first, become money pits, some cars, but I wouldn't begrudge the car that. But my mechanic straight away said, "Oh look, the Vanos, the dual Vanos, is not working properly." He took the car for a drive straight away. So straight away, it's like you buy an older car and had to probably dump $6,000 or $7,000 straight into the car to get, because it was a huge job. It's like a 12-hour return trip. The mechanic could say 6 hours in and 6 hours out of taking the car apart. And actually, he had to do it a couple of times, but he didn't charge me because he went in, didn't fix the problem properly. And he said he came in on his weekend and did it again just to make sure the car was perfect. But I put a lot of money into that car, and it was a case of, I'm a sort of person, if we're doing something major to the car, I'd always say to Rob, well, Rob, while we're in there, what else should we do? Like for preventative maintenance, because sometimes in cars it costs a lot of money to get us into a certain spot into a car.
Yes.
And he'd say, well, we should replace this or we should replace that. And I always did it. So I think I paid $42,000 for the car, and I would have put $20,000 to $25,000 easy into the car over the 4 years I owned it. And when I sold it, what did I buy? I had an 840. Also had an 840 Ci at the time. It was an 840, another beautiful car. And
lovely shape.
And I was buying an M2, so I had to figure out which car I was going to sell. And I decided to sell the M5, mainly because I had nowhere to garage it, and the car was in immaculate condition. I didn't want it deteriorating on the driveway, you could say.
So the M5, David, is it an expensive car to own? Like, is it an expensive car for repairs? Because I have heard things on other podcasts, and I'm guessing it was Matt Farah talking about it, or someone was talking about it, that the M5 is, even back in the day when they were new. And how many years ago did you buy the M5?
2012, something like that.
2012. So I know you just said you had to get all that work done. Was it reliable after you had that done? Look,
the car was very reliable. Like, I had no qualms of jumping in the car. I drove to Adelaide and back once in it, so I had no qualms about it. But cost of parts can be prohibitive. Like, the ABS unit gave up, and that was nearly $2,500 US part. Wow. Even though it was even more expensive in Australia, so I bought it from the US. And but besides the ABS, maybe a fuel pump. A lot of the stuff I did on the car was just routine maintenance, like read the suspension, and there was chalk and cheese. The difference between a car, because by then the shock absorbers and all the suspension on the car was like 15 years old. Right. And the difference of renewing the suspension, so those sort of things. There's only one or two major breakdown repairs, you could say. But other than that, it was just routine maintenance stuff that you did, But I'd say whoever bought my car, car I had, they'd have a very good drive.
Okay, let's get into that. So you said you sold it for around $42,000, right? You sold it $42,000 a few years back. Iconic car now. Everyone wants they want that M5, right? Or they want the M3 of a similar era. They want that sort of BMW. That's what people are chasing after, and the prices are showing that. So you just mentioned to me that this car had recently been resold, right? It's been resold on, was it Collecting Cars?
Yeah, it was on Collecting Cars. People in America and in the UK and that will know that website. Chris Harris promotes a lot. He's involved somehow. But so it came up on Collecting Cars, and I was watching the car because, once again, it's a car if I had a three or four car garage, I wouldn't have sold that car. But it sold for $63,000, and whoever bought it, as I know, just the history of the car and the amount of money I put into the car, whoever bought it got a really good deal. No rust in that car. It was, an Australian delivered car. Occasionally you'll find ones which people have bought it from. If you bought, you wouldn't touch one that comes from the UK unless it's been housed over winter, of course. But it was. That's a car. I still think is a 400 horsepower, 6-speed manual. Very great car to drive. Sounds amazing too. The engine was, for its day, was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a beautiful car. It surprises me that price, though. I thought it would have sold for more than that. I don't know. Maybe I don't know the market. I thought that sounded pretty reasonable.
I think Michael, it was. I think there's one sold on Collecting Cars. There's a couple on at car sales at the moment where they're asking mid 70s to $80,000. Of course,
yes.
I don't know how long they'll sit on there for, but whoever bought this car, because there's the what's his name, the dealer. There's a margin on Collecting Cars. I forget how much it is. It's 5% or something like that. You have to pay extra. Yeah, up to $10,000, I think, on Collecting Cars. You pay an extra bit. So the car might have cost the fellow $65,000 once he paid Collecting Cars their cut.
But he's got a great car.
A very good price and a low mileage. I think it only had 142,000 kilometres on it. When I sold it, the people who have owned it since I've owned it, it's been 3 owners. They've only put 5,000 Ks on the car in probably 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, not very, very.
That's why you wanted to buy it back. Isn't it bad, though, this situation that we have, this garaging situation, it really does restrict us, doesn't it? You know what I mean? The fact that you don't have the space to store cars, unless you pay to store them, which can be easy depending on where you live in the world, or also a hassle as well.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one.
I had a friend of mine, he's got a 12-car garage, a warehouse up in Hornsby in Sydney. And Steve's got he's an Englishman, and he came to this country with nothing and sold his company for a lot of money. And now he collects, he's got a DB5s, E-types, Jensen FF, Jensen Interceptors. And he had enough room in his garage. He said, look, when he heard I was selling it, he said, look, don't sell it. Just put it in my garage in Sydney. And my wife said, no, you're not putting a car in Sydney in a garage which you'll never drive. And probably she was right.
All right, so you sold the M5. You mentioned something about an M2. Is that what funded the M2?
Yes. I bought an M2. That was the first M2, the original one, and that was a lovely car. And I used to take that to just modded it, lightly modded, chipped the engine and put a really nice exhaust on it, and it was a very loud car. And I used to take it to the track at Eastern Creek and enjoyed the car. I sold the car probably. I wish I'd kept it. One thing about COVID, the price of cars has gone silly. I sold that car for half the cost I bought it. And I held the car for like 2.5 years, and I probably half the value of the car disappeared in that time. It wasn't a great time to sell cars.
Yeah.
I reckon if I'd kept it for another year with COVID, I probably would have had $20,000 more.
It's a bit like the 1M, the 1M when Steve sold his, and the 1Ms were sitting, and I don't know what Steve sold his for, but the 1Ms were sitting on car sales at around 60, and then all of a sudden now they're back up to 80 odd. So they're the same thing.
I've got a couple of.
Yeah, but the M2, I think you sent me a picture of it, and because I was talking about a car for Natasha, and I still like the M2. I look at them, and I look at them basically because of that pricing as well, because I know that, for the international listeners, they were about, I don't know, there must have been 120 or something new, right? At least 120.
Yeah.
And there's some, higher mileage ones, but some of them on car sales, they're like 69, 65, depending on the mileage.
That's roughly, that's what I sold mine for, 65, and it only had 20,000 Ks on it.
See, it seems too cheap because it's such a it's a great car. My friend actually has one. My friend who's a doctor in Sydney, he actually has one. He sold his Merc 500 for one of those, and he loves it. He loves it. And it's just easy to get around, backwards and forwards to the practice and everything like that. It's just an easy car to park, easy car to drive, fun to drive. Sounds amazing. It really has a really good burble to it, even in the stock form. What is the thing? What is the thing, though, David, with BMWs? Before we get into the Porsches, the thing with BMWs, a lot of people seem to do that, don't they? You just do the little chipping on. You chip the BM, and then you do the exhaust, and it really does transform the car. Is that is that an appeal of BMWs?
I think they're, especially the more modern ones, are easy to do. Like it went from, I think standard was 370 horsepower, and once we did these, not overly expensive modification, it was like 450 horsepower then. So a lot of power for a very little car, but very tractable. It wasn't didn't ruin the driving dynamics of the car or anything like that. And it was a very nice car to drive, and just the dynamics of driving a well sorted BMW. Unfortunately, I think they've lost their way with that new grille. I just can't handle those new grills on the M3 and their SUVs. And I couldn't buy one. I couldn't buy a BMW now with that grille.
I used to go past one when I was in London. Every time I'd go for the morning walk near Greenwich, and I used to go past one. There was a green one, the 3 Series competition with the green grille. It kind of started to grow on me after a while, but then when you see it in a dark color, if you see it in a dark color and it's got the number plate, it doesn't look as bad. But then I saw one in Sydney the other day. I think it was an M4 or whatever. I saw one just yesterday actually, and it didn't look good. It didn't actually look good. So I don't know. It must be the surroundings that make it look better, because it looked okay in the UK, but it doesn't look good here. That's for sure.
No. So after the M2 and the F80, F82. M3s have lost their way.
Yeah. M2 competition's pretty cool though, isn't it? They're not bad.
Yeah. I've got a friend who's got an M2 competition. He's just bought a GT4. He's only had that for about a month.
Oh, really?
And but he's keeping both, he told me, so he can interchange. He's a bit of a track rat nowadays, and so he's going to have 2 cars to go to the track in.
So the track day thing, is that, you did it in the BMW. Was that the first time you'd been on track, or you did it with other cars as well?
No, the first time I did it was with the BMW, and like I hear you and Steve talk about going to the track, and it's especially I've done it with a group called the Burrows Days in Sydney. It's very professionally run,
right?
Guys, there's lots of Ferraris and Lamborghinis, all different types of Porsches, high-end BMWs, Maseratis, all those sort of cars, and everybody there is very mindful of everyone's car. Like there is rules for overtaking. It's not a race. It's to go and use your car to its potential. But I always say that I drive at 8/10, not 10/10, because you want to bring your car home at the end of the day, and it's not that scary. Once you get there and learn, you can push the car fairly hard, but you can still drive within your limits. But have a lot more fun than you can driving on the road.
Yeah. No, it sounds like a good thing to do. I still want to do it, that's for sure. All right, so we've had a very special Holden Commodore. We've had an E39 M5, another really special driver's car. The M2 as well, sought after driver's car. What happens next? Is that when we start to see the 911 appear?
Yes, well, I had one. Well, actually, I had my name down for a Spider, a 718 Spider.
Yep,
but
I like those.
It was just rolling on, and getting a bit impatient. And then I read, I got a magazine, reading Porsche magazines, and up comes the 911T, and I thought, why don't I buy one of those instead? So that was just a spur of the moment. Got in the M2, drove to Sydney, went to Sydney, Port Sydney, the south one, and went in there and. The girls, they had a couple on the floor.
David, when you could buy one, when you could go into a dealer and buy one, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, yes. They had a couple. They had a couple, but they were all PDK. And I spoke to one of the sales sales ladies came out. She, I mentioned, look, I want a manual.
Yep.
And she said, look, can't help you. We're not. Porsche Australia's not bringing any more cars. Okay, so I thought, I drove to Parramatta because that's where I had my name down for the Spider, and spoke to the guy there, and he had a few PDKs, said, no, I don't think we can get you a manual. Tried to push me into a 991.2 GTS.
Okay.
Push my budget another 40 or 50,000. a friend of mine, he's got heaps of Porsches. He said, look, I'm sure we can get that for $290,000. And in the end, I said, no, it's okay. I'll go to Willoughby. So I went to Willoughby, and they were really nice, and I mentioned I wanted, and they had, once again, they had a PDK on the floor. I said I wanted a manual, and they said, look. So we did some negotiating, and we got to the price, and eventually they said to me, because it was backwards and forwards with my friend who's bought a lot of Porsches in me, you're going, no, we can get it cheaper. Right. And so eventually the sales guy said, look, how much do you want to pay? Which is funny.
That's a great question.
And I said, I gave him a figure, and it was 10% less than in those days you could get a discount. It was 10% less than the listed price of the car.
Right.
And he went away to his sales manager, and they said, yes, we'll accept that deal. He said, yeah, 10% I got off the listed price. And but the only proviso was, he said, we'll put it through to Porsche Australia, and we don't know if we can get you an allocation. And 2 months later, they said, came back to me and said, yes, we've got you an allocation. It's going to be the last 911T manual coming into the country. So, and I spec the car myself, how I wanted the car.
All right, let's get into that. Let's start on that straight away. So tell the listeners how you went about optioning, how you went about speccing this car. And a special car as well, which was a little bit underrated when it first came out, a little bit. You know what I mean? And now they're very, very sought after. So how did you go about that, David? What were the things that you thought were definitely a necessity?
Well, first of all, I wanted a manual car. I love driving manual cars, and I live in the country, so that day-to-day grind of a manual in a big city is not a problem for me.
Yep.
So I got the manual. Wanted the sports exhaust. Got rear wheel steer.
Yep.
In the end, we got 4-ways, but that was a bit of a compromise for my wife, because my wife wasn't a huge fan of the carbon buckets. So we went for the 4-ways with the T interior, the yellow pinstripes and on the seats, and all the deviated stitching and that sort of stuff. So it was a GT Silver in GT Silver. I know you like GT Silver.
I do. And I like that combination, actually. I like that combination with the Carrera T. And I think I might have said to you on DM or something, there was the one that came up somewhere, was it Auto House, or one came up in manual. I don't think it had the yellow, it might have had the grey inside the silver.
Yeah.
But the GT Silver with that yellow interior, I do like it with the lightweight buckets, though. If it's got the lightweight buckets, it would be very, very, very cool. But I don't mind those seats. I don't mind the Carrera T seats.
Yeah.
So what else?
I don't know how many.
Did you get sunroof, though? I forget if you said yes or no to the sunroof.
No, I didn't want a sunroof, because I've had sunroof in other cars and I've never opened. So, not that I bought cars with the sunroof, but I would never option the car with a sunroof. But no, it was there was just yellow painted dials, and I don't think there was many other options. There was no other options really we put on the car. It was pretty basic, like I would have loved the leather interior, but I was trying to keep the car to a price point at that stage. And it was a great car. It is a great car to drive. The 3-litre twin turbo, smaller engine, but I'd say on driving that car versus my new car on the street, it's just as much fun, you could say, because the GT3 is a lot of car for the street. But this other car, you could really go through the rev range with this manual in the 3-litre. But it was a lovely car.
I want to get into that comparison shortly. I want to get into that comparison because it is the fact that you've got these, which are becoming. They are both two iconic cars for different reasons, right? There are cars that are going to be sought after in the future, the Carrera T and the GT3. You know what I mean? The Touring. So how was it though? You said you went out of the M2 and you went into the 911. How was that as a driving experience? How was that the first thing you thought of when you were driving the 911 compared to the M2?
I think it's chalk and cheese, you could say, whereas the M2 is a passenger car tried to made into a sportier car.
Yes.
The Porsche is, designed straight as a sports car, you could say, and the difference in driving the cars. The Porsche is just another level up. Driving over an M2 BMW, it's just another level of engineering. The feel of driving the car. It's just it was it's a big move up in price point. Of course, it's double the price of an M2.
Yeah.
So you expect it to be that move up the ladder, you could say. But yes, it was a lovely car. And I'd recommend anyone who.
How was the sound? Sorry, David. How was the sound? Did you opt to have the tinted windows, or you opted not to have the privacy glass and you had the lightweight glass that was on the side windows in the back?
I had the lightweight glass, and it's nowhere near as noisy as a GT3 inside.
Right.
But it is fairly. You can still hear the rocks in the rear wheel arches and that sort of stuff because there's less sound deadening in the car.
Yes.
But. For a turbo engine, it's not. It sounds fairly. It's engaging, you could say, engaging to drive, and I'd never felt you could say let down by. The sports exhaust is lovely. It depends if you like that overrun burble you get when you put it into the sport mode. You could say some people don't like the little crackles and pops, and that's what the exhaust gives you in sports mode. And I always drove it in sports mode just for that sound and it had it's got the rev matching.
Yes.
Not everybody. I don't class myself as a great driver or anything like that, and I don't pretend to think I'm the best driver in the world. I'm not the worst, but the heeling toe. Well, some people are good at it and practiced it. I've never done it, so you get that fun rev changing of the downshifts and things like that, which is just a little. It makes you want to drive the car enthusiastically, you could say.
Did you have the rear seats or no rear seats?
I didn't want the rear seats, and my wife said we should get the rear seats, and the sales guy said, "Oh, you've got to get the rear seats. It'll be better for resale."
Oh, really?
So yeah, that's what they said. They did say that.
I thought it'd be worse. I thought resale would be better if you didn't have the rear seats. You know what I mean?
Like how many? Yeah. Well, a lot of people would like a GT3 Touring. But there's always, especially if you read the things on Ren list and things like that, and they say, "Oh, I wish they make the GT3 with rear seats."
Right.
And a lot of people who buy the T still want to be able to take the wife and the kids in the car, and you could say, and a lot of people have that. Not everybody. Some people have got enough money that they could say, "Oh, well, I don't need those rear seats. I've got my other Porsche, or I've got my other car. The family can all go out in." So. You'll probably find unless they got the lightweight buckets, I'd say any car that has the 4 ways or 18 ways will have the rear seats. I'd say predominantly.
Right.
I don't know how many. I don't know how many they brought in. People say as few as 30 911-2s were brought into the country.
Really?
Because at the time, people, it was an end of run production model, you could say, and people didn't really understand the car, like real enthusiasts now understand the car, but there wouldn't be many with the bucket seats in Australia.
Yeah, and I think most of our listeners probably understand the misunderstanding with this car. People thought it was a base Carrera. You know what I mean? I mean, there's the history of the Carrera T, right? 911T. But most people thought it was like a base Carrera, but it wasn't just a base Carrera, was it? I mean, the transmission in this, the manual transmission is a really great transmission, right? I mean, sorry, go ahead.
It's a 7-speed, so it's not the 6-speed you get in the GT cars. And some people don't like it, think because the ratios are fairly close in the box, so it's not as precise as driving the GT3. You can sometimes miss a gear if you're not really concentrating, you could say, on the shift pattern. But yeah, but you say the T was good value for the money of all those extras that came standard with the car. That if you bought a Carrera, by the time you got all the options that you got virtually standard on the T for probably half the price.
Yes,
that was the good thing about it.
And you look at resale prices now, and this is in Australia, of course. If you look at car sales now, the T price has gone up. I mean, there's some selling for $249, $250, right?
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Yeah, and some of them are higher than the Carrera S of the same model year. You know what I mean? Yeah. The Carrera S is less, and the Carrera T is worth more because the Carrera T is still, like you said, it's still limited run. No one really knows how many have been delivered. There'll be not that many in manual. But I just want to, I find the Carrera T interesting, and I think when we get into your next car, then the reason why you sold it to buy the GT3, but it's almost like when I remember watching Cam Ingram on YouTube, I think, who has the Ingram collection. His father has the Ingram collection, and he has a Touring. But obviously his family, they also have the 911R. You know what I mean? And he was asked if you could tell the difference between the 911R and the GT3 Touring. And he said, yes, you can tell the difference. The 911R is still a little bit better, but it doesn't take away from the GT3 Touring at all. And I think that comparison is almost a little bit like the Carrera T, right? That the Carrera T, it's not as good as the GT3 Touring, but it's got traits that do make it really special. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, exactly. I wouldn't say it's a poor man's GT3. Some people can't push to that extra level, but as I say, it's a very engaging car to drive. It's last of the narrow body 911s. All 911 now are all wide body.
Yeah,
and it was just a fun car. It was just a fun car to drive. It could do fun at the track on back roads. It was a really great car to drive on back roads. The torque of the car, it's just a fun car to drive. And I think people are starting to realise. I know Auto House actually had 3 in a couple of months ago.
And they sold so quickly. 3. And they had the GT Silver manual one. I think it just touched it for like an hour and it was gone. It was just literally gone. Oh, and then the one at Classic Throttle recently was just gone,
They've sold a couple. As Steve always says, you've got to be prepared to have the cash in your hand to buy the car you want. Well, when I bought, we'll go to the GT3. I left my name with a few independent dealers because they're hard to get. And out of the blue, I got a phone call from Matt at Porsche Den, lovely fellow in Melbourne, and he said, "Look, I've got a black GT3, low mileage, had full leather interior, all these things I wanted."
Okay.
And he said, "Are you interested?" And I said, "Oh, of course I'm interested." The hard part was having the ready funds to buy that car.
Yes.
So I had certain amount of access to a certain amount of funds out of investments, but you take money out of investments that you could miss a movement or something like that, and it costs you money. And when we're talking about the values of the 911T, I took his offer for my car.
Okay. I want to go back a little bit, actually, because you sent me a DM, and I want to tell the listeners, you sent me a DM and you sent me what I think is, and not taking anything away from your choice of your GT3, you sent me that green one, the Irish green.
The green one. Oh.
Which was as you said, the unicorn, right? This is the one.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it was, and it literally, you sent it to me, and I think when I looked at it, and then I went back to look at it again, and it was gone. And it was, just tell the listeners, it was what was the green? It was
it was Irish green.
Irish green.
It was at the Classic Throttle shop in Sydney. Now I saw that, so it was, and it had carbon ceramics, full leather interior,
beautiful,
every option you could ask for. and it was on. This car is probably undersold in value. It only sold like 6 months ago, and it ended up selling for the list price of $390,000 or something. $394,
which is quite cheap now when you think about it.
Well, $390, especially for all the options. And life gets in the way, you could say, Michael. I had some minor surgery booked. That I saw it on the Tuesday night. I had some minor surgery booked on the Wednesday, and I said to myself, I did send an email, and they got back to me, like the fellow, even in the evening, he got back and said, yeah, we got the car, blah, blah, blah. And next morning I had to go for minor surgery, and I went, will I ring them on the way? I hadn't broached the subject of this car with my wife at this stage, so I thought, we're in the car driving to the hospital for the minor surgery, and I went, well, I say to my wife, I'm going to buy this car. I want to buy this car and get on the phone right now and ring the dealer. Or will I wait till I come out of surgery? And I thought, I'll wait till I come out of surgery. It doesn't matter. The car will be there. It's such an expensive car. Some people won't want it. People aren't going to buy it like that. By the time I went into surgery, and time I came out in the middle of the afternoon, I rang the dealer and said, hello, I'm ringing about the GT3 Touring. And he says, oh, it's already sold. And he said he could have sold the car 10 times that day, and the father and son, like a middle-aged bloke and his early 20s son, came in, looked at the car, said, where do we sign? We're not going to barter, or we're just going to pay full price. And they signed up the car, and the car was sold within 3 or 4 hours of the dealer opening that day.
And I think, exactly. And I think, it wasn't just because it was a GT3 Touring. I think it was the color. It was the color, wasn't it? And because it harks back to that, that special 911 they built. What was it? 10 millionth or 1 million? What was it? That one, the green one?
The 1 millionth.
The 1 millionth. That one, and then that's the green. And I think the color just sold it. And when you sent it to me, it was like, wow, I've never seen. That must be one of one in Australia. Must be one of one. There couldn't be any more of it. Let's just go back to this decision though, because you've got a Carrera T. You spec'd it out from new. You got it from Porsche Willoughby. You got an allocation. You got this car. It's a great car. You're really enjoying it. It's exactly how you want it. What was that thing that you thought what was the deciding thing that you said, okay, I don't want the Carrera T anymore. I want a GT3. Okay. What was it?
I wanted a GT3 for a couple of years, even before I bought the original, the T. But money-wise at that stage, you take baby steps, you could say. And I've got a motto in life now is you're a long time dead and you can't take it with you. I've had a few friends pass away recently at my age of, certain diseases and whatever. And I'm thinking you're only here once, and you've got to grasp hold of what you want to do if you can afford to.
Yes.
And so I decided I wanted to get a GT3, and as I say, the green one was the first one I tried to buy, but that deal fell through. So I left my name with a few dealers, independents, you could say. And I was offered a blue GT3 Touring, but didn't have leather interior, and I wanted the full leather interior. If I was moving up, I thought we want the whole 9 yards. So that's when we were offered the black.
Sorry, David, before you saw the black one though, was that silver one going around at that time? The one that's been for sale on and off for ages? The one that had two images on one stage on car sales, and that's all he posted, and there was nothing else.
Car's been for sale about 4 or 5 times. I don't know this guy. I don't know what his planet he's on, but it was actually for sale for under 350,000 about 12 months ago.
Yes, I remember.
And you saw it. It's on car sales now for 447.
Yeah.
And there's another one in WA for 450. And I say this to my wife to validate my purchase. I say the spec of my car is better than the spec of those two cars. So she's happy. She thinks we're in front by about $50,000. Oh,
that's good. That's good. And you got a great spec as well. So let's get into that. So you got the feelers out. You got the feelers out with the specialists in Australia. Like you said, Porsche Dan is really well known now. I don't know how long he's been around, but he's really well known and sells a lot of great cars. Yeah. He gets a lot of great cars in. How was that process? What happened? You made a decision pretty quickly?
Yeah, well, I made the decision pretty quickly. And as I said before, I didn't have the ready funds available to pay for the car outright. So he made me an offer on my car. And you want to strike by the iron side. I maybe should have offered my car to places like Auto House and a few of the Porsche dealers. I'm sure I probably diddled myself out of a bit of money there, because the car... Yeah, a little bit of money. I'll tell you off here how much I sold it for.
It doesn't matter though, because you made money now on the GT3.
Oh, I made
so
money. That's
it
good.
all evens out in the end, right?
Well, and I say he offered to take my car. My car went to Melbourne, and one day later he sold it and came back to Sydney.
Really?
It did a 2,000-kilometre round trip to Sydney and to Melbourne and back. He sold it. He sold the car in one day. So, but I could have I might have been, like hindsight, I might have been able to say, look, give me a week to list my car on car sales, see what happens, that sort of thing. But these cars don't come up that often, and I think there's only been two other GT3 Tourings come up. Besides the two are listed now, and both of them are sold within a day or so. A silver one at Porsche Centre Willoughby sold only about a month ago, and I spoke to the salesman. I was at a track day the Porsche Centre Willoughby had on. I said, "Oh, that GT3 Touring." He said, "Yes, I sold that car," and he told me how much it sold for, and I just went, "Gee!" And then once again, the spec of that car was not as good as the spec of my car. It didn't have a full leather interior, and so it's amazing. Just in the last 6 months, all three cars that have sold, plus these other two cars, are selling for tens of thousands of dollars more.
Yes.
Luckily I paid. So I feel good in that regard.
All right. So I remember when you sent me the message. I remember when you bought this, and you bought it. It seemed pretty quickly. I remember you made the decision pretty quickly, and you said you bought it already. You sent me the message, and you said you bought it. So you got the funds together. You purchased the GT3 Touring. Let's tell the listeners exactly what the specs were, because the GT3 Touring is really special. I mean, I love the seats. I really do love the seats in the Touring, those black seats. So tell the listeners exactly what it came with, David.
It came with the full leather dash, leather door cards, 18 ways, upgraded lights. What else is there? There's not a huge sports chrono, of course, which some cars don't. Even I saw one of the GT3s hasn't got it. Not that I use it, but they always say it's a sought after option or whatever. But that was about it, you could say. The leather interior is probably one of the expensive options, you could say. And there's one or two things, options, which you'd like. But, of course, when you buy a car, the second owner, you could say you've got to take whatever somebody had. Even the colour. I've had black cars before. And
is it metallic black or jet black?
Jet black, yeah.
Jet black.
Yeah, the jet black, yeah. And they're hard to maintain. I would have liked the GT silver or a paint to sample colour, you could say. But, now I'm quite happy with the car now. But so we got the car and COVID hit. And my car went to Sydney to get paint protection film put on. Okay. And with COVID and delays, and then we realised, look, there's a lot of stone chips on this car because the previous owner didn't put, because of the big wide guards, the rear arches had been peppered, the bumper bar had been peppered.
Oh, really?
Even with only 8,000, even with 8,000 Ks, it had a lot of stone chips on those areas. And I decided, so I got that.
Sorry, David, when did you notice the stone chips? Did you know about that before you purchased it? Or you found out once you got it delivered?
Well, see, it was in Melbourne. COVID was all going. So I couldn't really get down to look at the car. And the photos you get. And the fellow said, yes, Matt said, yeah, it's in good condition. And look, probably is for it, but I'm a perfectionist, you could say. I like my cars perfect, you could say. So my mate who was going to put the paint protection film on said, look, if we put the film over the stone chips, you'll see the stone chips. They'll be very prominent, you could say, under the film. So I decided, well, we'll spray those out. So I went to a Porsche body shop and we got all those sprayed out. And then we put the paint protection film on. So the car is immaculate now, you could say. So it's one of those things.
Let me go back to that process then. And, when you buy it from Porsche Den, trusted dealer, Porsche specialist, what other checks did you do on the car? Do you just trust that dealer or did you do other checks?
Well,
I'm getting onto the PPI question here, but I know it's a newer car, so not a lot of people do PPIs on newer cars.
Nah.
But how did you go about that? Because,
I saw the service history and the car was only just over 2 years old. So it still had another year of its full warranty. And as soon as I bought the car, Porsche Australia had a 70th anniversary deal on, you could say, buy 3 years of extended warranty, get 4.
Okay.
And you all know the last thing you want is a motor in a GT3 to implode out of warranty.
Yeah.
That's a big lump to swallow. So for $4,000 for $1,000 a year for the extended factory warranty. I thought, well, so I was confident, with a factory warranty on the car that I didn't need to get a PPI done on the car. If a car was out of warranty, definitely I'd get a PPI done, but not always. That sometimes you can find that doesn't. Especially on older cars, some of these. I had older BMWs and things like that. You can get a PPI done, but as we all know, you can drive the car down the road and
something happens.
As we've had on a few of the owner stories of that. I've got the car, took it down the road, and 2 days later, you've got a big bill. Well, with a car under warranty, I didn't think that was a problem.
Yeah, quite a few people have had that happen, haven't they, in owner stories where the PPI and then you're driving home, basically, driving home and something happens to it. So PPI is no guarantee. I guess really the guarantee, having the Porsche warranty, and other people have said this on owner stories too, that's enough for them. As long as it has the Porsche warranty, they're not and it's from a dealer or either a Porsche dealer or a respectable, specialist. They're not that fussed with doing a PPI or any type of inspection because you've got the Porsche warranty, right? So you feel like you've got something there.
Yeah, like it. And to say, if I didn't extend the warranty, the last thing you do is you go to a dealer just before the warranty's up and get them to check the car, or even if you take it to an independent because they're a bit more. Go to Auto House and say, look at the car. Can you find anything wrong? Then go back to the dealer and say, here's a list of things. The car's under warranty. I want these fixed. But I've extended it for 4 years just so for peace of mind. So
that's good.
It's out to 2026 full, factory warranty, you could say.
Yep. All right. So COVID hit. You've bought the car. You've cashed in your investments. You bought your GT3 Touring. You've got the pinnacle of the range. It takes ages to get it because it's sitting in getting the PPF done. There's got to be, the paint has to be corrected or sprayed.
And cured.
Yeah, which takes time. So all this stuff before you can put PPF on it as well, which I know, 4 weeks, right? Or 8 weeks, some people say. So when do you actually get the car? And let's go to that. I love that first impressions because you've had the 911 Carrera T. It's got the 7-speed manual in the Carrera T, like you said. This has got the GT3. This is the 6-speed. Was it night and day, the experience?
Oh, it was, yeah. Like it was nearly 6 months from after I bought the car to I finally got the car in the garage.
Really?
People were saying, it just seemed to rock because COVID and businesses where his business was inside the area of COVID where people weren't allowed to go to work, and he lived outside that area, so his business was badly affected. But finally, I got the car, and it was just when he backed it out, brought the car out of his business premises. It was just like, amazing! He got in the car and driving it home, the sound of the car, and incredible. And the first time you took it to now 9,000, and the punch back in the seat of the when it get because after 3,000, 3 or 4,000 it kicks, then it kicks again after seven and a half.
Yeah, it's
beautiful. It's just a vicious acceleration and the noise of the car once you put it on song.
Yeah, it looks great when you stand next to it. Did you stand behind the back of it and just look at that GT3 Touring badge on the back as well? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I've got a Touring.
The stance and the stance of the stance of the car is just amazing, and just the feel of driving it. So anyway, we got that home. We done a few modifications to the car. Got some red seat belts just to give it a little bit of colour inside because it's all black. And we put a Sharks Works exhaust on.
Oh, did you?
That's incredible.
The X-pipe, is it? Cross pipe at the back or whatever it is?
No, it's just you change the rear muffler.
Okay.
So it's still the rear muffler comes out, so it's only got the two side mufflers and switchable, so you can still potter around quite quietly. But if you open the valves, it really comes alive, you could say. So that was a good investment.
Did you buy that from Sorry, David. Did you buy that from the States? Did you buy it from the US?
I actually bought it on Renlist.
Okay.
I find there's a lot of good second-hand parts, like especially now a lot of people in the US are changing out of their GT3 maybe for a 992 or whatever, and it ended up being about half the price of buying a brand new one here. So that was a great saving.
Sharkworks do some great things, don't they? I really enjoyed that podcast when he did that. I think he was on Car Talk or whatever, or Sam Moore's podcast when he was on that. The guy, Alex from Sharkworks. I don't know whether you listened to it. It's a really good episode. I mean, he does.
I did listen to that. Yes.
Yeah, he does some great stuff. Their exhausts are really, really cool. Who else was talking about that on the WhatsApp group? Carrera Licious, wasn't he? Rich. I think Rich was talking about. He did that as well.
Well, they make one for 997 as well. I give for a few
Point
different
two,
models.
though.
But,
0.2, not 0.1, I don't think.
Unless
they've changed.
Yes, in the 997, yes. You can get one for a GT3. Must be a 0.2 then. Yeah, I've just seen one recently.
Yeah, I was looking at them and I remember at the time they were only the because people were doing the Fister with the Sharkworks combination, but it was only for the 0.2, not for the 0.1.
Yeah.
I remember that's why I just went with the Fister. Wow, so you've got a great exhaust. You've done that. You've got the red seat belts. They were done by Porsche, I guess.
No, we went to Auto House. Auto House did all the work on that. I was down there about a week before you dropped your car in. First time I'd been there, and really great professional guys. And I had we always talk about that the surprising thing you get with the new car. You've got to pay for it straight away. Well, I got a nail in one of my tyres. The night before I was going to drive to Auto House, I go there and the left rear is dead flat. Oh. So I get out my compressor and pump it up, right up, and check it in the morning and realise it's losing about 1 psi an hour. So I drove down to Auto House and dropped the car off and told them, look, I've got a nail in the rear tyre. They go, yeah, we'll fix that, not a problem. And then you get half an hour later, you get that dreaded phone call, which you had when they were talking about your clutch. I think they bring you or something.
Well, they gave me the whole list of everything, yeah.
Yeah, but this is like half an hour after I left. I get the phone call and it's like, hello, David. Look, we can't fix that tyre. It's too close to the sidewall. Right. And both the tyres are 60% worn, so we recommend you change both rear tyres. Fair enough. And then there's $1,600 for 2 new rear tyres, and you've only just got the car for about a couple of weeks. So
yeah, that's crazy. They're Cup 2s, right? Cup 2s on the GT3 Touring?
Yeah.
So very sticky.
On the GT3. Yes, yeah, they're great tyres and everything. And the only other thing I've got coming is the dynamic stability control unit for 991.2.
What is that? Explain that one, David. How does that get fitted?
In the rear, behind the seat, see the piece of carpet you can pull up, and it pulls out, and you take out the Porsche factory one, and you put this one in, and they program the suspension, shocks, rebounds, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And the only thing, my wife picked it up straight away when we drove the GT3. She said, "Oh, it's a very stiff car. You could feel on bad road on good road surfaces, not a problem. You get on some really poor road surfaces, the car does bounce around a fair bit, and vibrate on. And this dynamic stability control, they soften the everyday program. You've got 2 programs for the suspension, and it softens the everyday drive one, makes it a little bit softer, a little bit more compliant, you could say. And just makes a little bit softer driving experience, you could say, especially where I live, the roads are very poor. But if you get nice tarmac, like at a racetrack, you can run it in the full sport mode, you could say. And but yeah, it wasn't. It's not cheap, but I wanted to try that and see if it just makes.
Who makes that, David?
Well, it's a company's called DSC. I mean, you have spoken about it once.
DSC
on one of the,
controller. Okay, yes.
Yeah, dynamic stability control. Yeah, DSC. You spoke about it with Steve once. So you were talking about the 997. You were talking about.
Is that what Steve has? Because Steve has some. I should know this, but I don't. I'll have to ask him. I'll have to ask him this week. But I think he has something from there that he put in to his car as well, which made it better, just to the 997. Yeah.
Well, it's a popular upgrade, and they have like a file. It's a GT3/Tour file, and you can this thing's totally programmable. If you want to muck around yourself, you can muck around with it, all sorts of things. But they do a lot of testing and everything, and this is very popular. But so I bought it mainly to see if I can get that everyday drive on poor surfaces just a little bit more compliant, you could say.
Okay. My question, though, to you, and this has happened with a lot of other people I've spoken on owner stories, that they're hesitant to do things to their car, especially if they have Porsche warranty. is this going to void the Porsche warranty?
Look, if you had a problem with the suspension, it's like a 5-minute changeover. You can put the it doesn't bring up any codes or anything like that in the car. You can just pull it out. If you were worried, like my dealer is a new dealer in Newcastle. I went down there for something and talking about changing the exhaust, they didn't have a problem. They're just the back box. It's not putting headers on or anything like that. And this, if I had a problem, if say I did have a problem with you felt there was something wrong with the suspension, it's just a case of 5 minutes, pull the carpet up, pull it out, undo a couple of tabs, switch it out, put the old one back in, and drive down to Porsche. So it doesn't really worry me. And they can't void your warranty. So say your engine imploded, they can't say because you've got a DSC controller that caused your engine to implode. The Australian consumer laws here would protect you. Okay. There's no way they could try and, like, I remember somebody I was hearing on another podcast I was listening to, and they were saying, this dealer voided this car's warranty because he did X some small thing, and there's no way in Australia with the the consumer laws that they could, by putting that piece in the car, they could say, something else went wrong with your transmission or your motor, and they could void your warranty. So, but if I had a problem with my suspension, yes, I'd change that out and go down to the dealer and say, hey, we've got a problem with this front shock or whatever.
Yeah. Is it so it's an expensive mod, is it? It's quite expensive. It's all comparative. They've just put their price up because they realise they're saying, well, I think if you bought it from there's a dealer in Sydney, I think it's $2,400.
Okay. But I got it from once again, it was a second-hand unit, fellow parting his car out, selling his car, and I got that for $1,350.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So, and like they're well sought after. They come up on Renlist and they don't last that long. And most of the ones being sold at the moment, because there's a 3-month delay on another chip issue. Right. There's a 3-month delay on these units from DSC in America. So people are virtually selling their second-hand ones for $1,400 US, which is the brand new price, and they're selling because people want them for their car, and they're not prepared to wait. So no, it's like second-hand car prices. People want things, and they're prepared to pay more.
All right, David. So you've got the pinnacle. I call it the pinnacle almost, because it's the 991.2 GT3 Touring. The Touring is everyone's favorite, right? Everyone wants one. In some ways, people want the Touring more than they want the winged version. So let's get into the 992 variant. Is it out yet? I haven't seen one. Have you seen one yet at the dealer? Have you seen the 70th anniversary?
No, I didn't go down to have a look at that car. And all those, I think it's 30 of them. They all sold, and they're all $525,000.
Yes,
they all sold. Bang. And I was just down at my dealer who's just opened last week in Newcastle, and they got an allocation of 4 GT3s. But the good thing about this dealer, they only sold them to people in the Newcastle Hunter region. They said
that's good.
They had heaps of phone calls from Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane of people chasing a GT3 who couldn't get one. And as a sidebar, Michael, I went to the opening the other night and I spoke to the dealer principal, and I said, well, the GT4 RS, how many people have rung up for one of those? He said he had 20 phone calls.
Since they've opened?
They've only been open a couple of weeks. And as soon as the car was announced, in like a matter of days, he had 20 phone calls from all over Australia. He said there were 7 local people who rang up. All the people who rang up from everywhere else, he just told them, there's no way I'm selling a car to you from Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth, when I've got 7 locals who want the car. And he said he'll be lucky to get 2 allocations.
2, really? That's it?
2.
Yeah, that's sought after. I mean, but what is the have they actually announced the price? Or maybe I missed it. Have they announced the price of the GT4 RS?
Well, I could probably sell my GT3 Touring to them and get a fully spec GT4 RS. A fully spec one in Australia with really going
Same
overboard
price
on options would be about $390,000.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a fully spec.
That's a lot. The question I want to ask you, though, is more importantly, the new GT3 Touring. Is that something that you may be tempted to look at?
I had my name down for one. I probably could have got one in Newcastle as well, because I spoke to a gentleman the other night at the grand opening of the dealership, and he said, he's just ordered a GT3 Touring, one of the 4 they're selling. And I said, when did you come in? He said, I came in the first week the dealer opened. I actually know the owner of the dealership. He owns lots of car yards, and I'm sure if I'd reached out to him like 2 or 3 months ago, I probably could have got a GT3 992. But I think by the time I spec'd that car, Michael, it was well in excess of $450,000.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't like the electronic dash. Maybe I'm a bit old, you know. I like all the dials. That's what I like. And the electronic, the interior of the car, even though it looks incredible with all the two-tone leather now you can get, which is not standard, but the options they're now giving on these. Like when the Touring came out, the options, unless you managed to get a paint to sample and managed to wangle somehow some major leather options on the car, they weren't available. The 992, right. there's about 10 different leather packages you can get as standard before you even go to saying like the Peter seats and things like that.
Yeah, they really the options now they do really push the price up, don't they? I mean, they're giving you so many more options, and like you said, you're up to 450. You're probably closer to 500. Really, you're probably going to hit 500 quite easily.
Because I think it shows on car sales, the no option price is $413,000 drive away. That's with no options, bog standard everything. Yeah. So you can imagine if you started putting, major leather options for Peter seats, paint to sample, carbon ceramics, you're right. You could push towards $500,000 very easily. And I just can't. And for a car with the same motor and more power than I'm ever going to put to its potential,
yes,
I couldn't see the value of going that extra $100,000.
Yeah, I don't think you need to either. That's where I'm coming from. I mean, I think the 991.2 GT3 Touring is a special car, and I still think it's a special car. It's in that generation with the 911R. It's in the generation with the 911 Carrera T. I know they'll probably do, maybe they're going to do something like a 911R again or a 911 Carrera T. They might do that again as well.
But they'll do a T, I'm for sure.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, David? It's the first reintroduction of it. You're there at this is the first reintroduction where they actually use the Touring package and they make it a proper variant. Do you know what I mean? It's not like how it was before in the 996 or 997 where it was just, you have the live weight buckets or you don't. It's more special than that without the wing and everything. So I think it's a really good generation to own, and I think it's one. And look at the prices worldwide. I can see the prices in London. I remember before I left, I was looking at them. It's gone crazy as well. 911 Carrera Ts, GT3 Tourings, you can't find them. Everyone wants them, and this is after the 992 was announced. You know what I mean? This is after the 992 announced. They didn't slow down. Sales have not slowed down on them. So there's something about that generation, isn't there?
And also, in Australia, as I say, there's only about 30 of the original Touring, but you're going to imagine they sold like 300 GT3s in the 991.2 generation, probably maybe even more, but 300. But now everyone has got the option of having a Touring or a wing. So there's going to be probably 150 or more in the 992 of the ones without the wing, but in the 991.2, it's going to be a very rare car. There'll be less than 30 of those cars in the country. Not that I bought it for an investment. But it is nice knowing that your car is not losing value as fast as other cars. But Porsches don't lose their value, as we all know. Like I know you want a 997 GT3 maybe, and the prices of those are insane on car sales.
Yeah, they've gone too much. They're out of my price range. Yeah. They're out of my price range now. I'm looking at other things. A Carrera T would be a better. The 911T would beat the 997 GT3. I'd say around the track. I don't mind the Carrera T. I have to say, I've been keeping my eye out on them, especially after speaking to you about yours, and I know you still like them. I know you still, even though you got your GT3 Touring, car. You still love them. You know what I mean? There's still something special about that car, even though you have the Touring with the better transmission, more power. There is still something about that Carrera T. I think I would be more tempted to buy the Carrera T than I would be to buy a 991.2 Carrera S.
Yes.
GTS, I do like the GTS. I am a fan of the GTS, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a rarity, isn't it? And GTSs, I
Yeah.
guess, aren't that sort of widespread. But the
And,
Carrera
and
T,
to get a manual, if you wanted a manual, to get a manual a GTS manual, very, very rare. As I said, the 992, I think I've sent you a message saying the only manual you can get in a 992 will be a GTS or a GT3.
Yeah,
You can't get in Australia. In Australia, they've decided no Carreras or Carrera S's will be manual.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to see that 992 GTS on the road to see how it looks, the stance of it. Did you see before we get on to your favorite drives, but before the Classic Throttle Shop had that 991.2 GTS and silver manual. I think it was 260 and then it went up to 229. Or was it 360, wasn't it? 360? I forgot. What was the price? 360, 260. And then it went up by 30 grand. It was 299.
Is it? Yeah, so it's just the prices at the moment on.
But it's sold. It's gone now. That was a manual GT Silver, very well spec'd.
And they sell like, as I say, people. I thought to get a car at the moment it's 8 to 12 months if you make an order. You know,
it's crazy.
Like the first GT3 coming into Newcastle dealership will probably be middle of next year. So it's going to be an 8-month wait for the car, and let alone Macans. I've got a friend want to buy a Macan. That's an 8-month wait as well.
Yeah, I know. It's everything, isn't it? It's just not 911s. It's everything has got to wait. That's good that there's a dealership, though. There's good that there's a Porsche dealership in Newcastle. For the listeners who don't know, that's like north of Sydney, a couple hours north of Sydney, in the sort of region where David lives. But it's good that they've got a dealership up there now, that's for sure. Well,
it's peace of mind. If unfortunately, the only drawback with GT3s is the centre lock. And if you want to, if you're broken down somewhere, at least you don't have to truck the car all the way to Sydney or something. At least it's only 40 minutes down the expressway to Newcastle.
The centre locks look good, though. They look good.
Oh, yes. Exactly. I like. I like the wheels, but I've already been looking at some other wheels.
Have you? Oh, I would keep the wheels you've got. I keep the stock wheels for sure.
I'd like 2 sets just so I could mount one set with a set of the Cup 2s and maybe have the PS4s for the road, because the only drawback of a Cup 2 is if it's really, really wet. Not that I take the car out in the rain or drive it every day anyway, but that's one other thing. But anyway, that was just if you get tired of the wheels, it's always nice to have another set of wheels.
True. So let's get on to it, David. Let's get on to because everyone, as I mentioned in the beginning, you live in the Hunter, we'll just say the Hunter Valley region of New South Wales. You're close to the famous Putty Road, which we're going to try and meet up at one point in the near future for sure, and have a coffee and have a drive. So what is it? Tell the listeners about your favorite driving roads. Is it the Putty or is there someone else? If someone's coming to New South Wales, they're driving out of Sydney, they're going up north to the Hunter Valley, or they're going in that region. What are your favorite driving roads, David?
Well, first of all, Michael, as I said, if we meet up, I'll let you have a drive of the GT3 Touring.
You sure?
That'd be fun. Oh yeah. Oh,
that would be the death of me. That would be the death of me. I won't be able to drive the Carrera again after that.
Say a really fun drive. Like for people out of Sydney, if you've got the time, is you'd go up the Putty Road, and you'd then go to Branxton, which is at the end of the Putty Road. It's about 20 minutes, and then I go. There's a great driving road, goes out of Branxton, out through East Gresford, across to Dungog, and then over to Gloucester. Then you'd have lunch at Gloucester, then you go up the Thunderbolts way to Tamworth, and it's just a great road. It's you seem to be climbing up for the whole drive. It's just because you go up into the New England tablelands, so Australia's not for overseas people. Australia's not a really mountainous country. It's the flattest continent on earth. But this is a great road which actually has great elevation changes, and it's a real fun. I did that with in the Porsche Club. I was we did a drive to Queensland this year, and we were at Gloucester. There was like 30 cars, and I said to my wife, "Well, we'll just take off and head towards Tamworth." And just in front of me, a guy pulled out in a 996 turbo. And him and I stuck together like glue for the next 2 hours, or whatever it felt like, driving to Tamworth. And it was the most spirited drive I've ever done on a public road. in my life.
Oh,
it
great.
was incredible.
Great fun.
It was great fun. So that's a great road. So
I haven't been to Dungog since I was 14. I think I've been there once before.
It's a great drive. So the Putty Road. Then you could go to Dungog, and then it's like a weekend drive you could do, and end up at Tamworth.
Fantastic.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah,
I'll remember that one. What about overseas? Have you driven? Have you driven any great roads overseas, or just mainly in Australia?
Well, a couple of years ago, I joined up with a friend. We both went to Europe back in the day, and he never came home. I came home, but he lived there for the next 30 years, and we joined up, and he passed away with a brain tumour 2 years ago now, and I went over there and helped look after him. But what's his name? Before he had this brain tumour diagnosed, I went over him, and he had a garage in the West Country of England, and I said, look, let's fly to Munich. And we hired an M2 in Munich, and we did 15 mountain passes. It's a Porsche book, a great Porsche book. And we drove 15 mountain passes across the Alps through Switzerland, Austria.
Oh, fantastic.
And Italy. And we just followed the route the book showed.
Yeah.
And over 4 days, we did 15 mountain passes. And,
that's
3
a great
nights.
thing to do. Wow, fantastic.
You can hire Porsches now out of the Porsche factory. That'd be the ultimate, hiring a 911 and doing this sort of drive. But I'd love to do it again because I've done it a couple of times, and it's a real, thing to do, especially if you get. As a sidebar, just before COVID started, there was 8 of us got together, and we were going to go to Italy and go to all the car factories, then fly to Germany and go to all the car factories there, the museums and everything. And we were going to drive the Alps. And we had one planning meeting, and then COVID hit.
Yeah, I know.
So we never got to do it. We might do it again.
You should. That hiring the 911, the Porsche from Stuttgart there is a great one to do. You have to book in really early, though. They go very quickly, the good ones.
Yes. Exactly.
But I think even just for a few days, just get it for 3 days or 4 days. It's not that. I don't think they're that expensive, but that's something I want to do too.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, I was wanting to go to the Porsche factory, the Porsche museum as well. And the thing is, it's open again now, but Germany's so hard to get into. But the factory's not open, so you can't do the factory tour. And I think if you go to the Porsche museum, you want to do that factory tour, even though they don't let you take photos or film anything. Just to go into the factory, I think is something special.
Yeah,
so I definitely want to do that. Oh, you have?
Yeah, I did that. I did that a couple of years ago.
Was it good?
It was amazing. Well, we went there. We got there and we stayed in a cheap hotel nearby.
Yes.
It was like 40 degrees in Germany. Incredible. It was incredibly, and the air conditioning didn't really work at this hotel.
Germany's awful when it's hot. It's the worst place.
It was about, but we went to the night before we did the museum and the factory tour. We went to Christoph's, which is the fine dining restaurant, which looks into the museum. And as I say, if you're a Porsche nut, stay the night before. Go to Christoph's, and it's a great steaks and everything, beautiful food. And then next day we did the museum, and then we did the Porsche factory tour. Unfortunately, we didn't have time. Apparently, the Mercedes Museum is even better than the Porsche Museum. It's 3 times the size of the Porsche Museum.
Yeah, they say you should do them both. That's for sure. You should go to Mercedes.
We didn't have time.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely, that's on the list to do hopefully summer 2022 and in European summer 2022, and hopefully things will be open and that'll be great. I'm definitely going to do that. David, what else? We have to end the podcast because we're at about an hour and 15. We like to keep them to an hour for most people. Anything else you'd like to share with the listeners about your Porsche journey?
Well, the next big adventure is we're doing Targa High Country with Porsche Australia. So that's for overseas people. That's closed roads, and it's in the high country with the snowy mountains there. So I'm really looking forward to driving the car on closed roads and very exciting roads. So that's coming up next end of January. So that'll be a bit of fun. I'll keep you informed.
So that's done through Porsche Club New South Wales?
Porsche Australia do it.
Porsche Australia.
Porsche Australia. They do the Targa High Country, Targa Tasmania, and Targa in Great Barrier Reef. up in Cairns.
Okay.
But they have the competition cars, of course, which is open, unlimited speed, unlimited type thing.
Yep.
But you'll find a lot of the manufacturers, Porsche do, I think it's Porsche, do one or two of the other manufacturers also have groups that do it. So they take 30 cars, and you normally drive before the competition cars go through. So you do every stage. Like I want to go and do Targa Tasmania in 2023. But you do all the same stages that the competition cars do, and it's just exhilarating driving the car at its full potential, you could say, off-road, under closed road conditions. That'll be that really
sounds
fun.
great. Where's the info of that on the Porsche Australia site, is it?
Yeah, if you go onto the Porsche Australia site, you'll find it in like events or something like that.
Okay.
I'll
have a look.
All the things that they list. They do a couple of track. Normally, you do a track day before you do the event, and it's not just GT cars and things that go in it. There's people with older Porsches do it as well. But it looks like a lot of fun. So I haven't done one of those before, but I've done a few nice. I'm in the Porsche Club in New South Wales, and that's it's growing amazing, the amount of new members. We had a Christmas party just recently with 150 people and 75 cars turned up just for the Christmas party. And they do that's where you can do motorsport with like-minded people in their Porsches 6 or 7 times a year, and good for social drives as well with a wife.
Yeah, true. I keep asking about cars and coffees happening or anything Porsche events happening, and everyone says nothing.
You missed one.
I asked Autohouse. I asked Chris at Autohouse the other day. He said no, like they can't do anything because of COVID. There doesn't seem to be anything going on.
Well, Porsche New South Wales did one up at there's this great auto themed cafe up at Dural, and they tried to limit it to 100 cars.
Right.
About 150 cars turned up. It was I turned up. There was a night. My Porsche turned up, and they got me to park right behind another GT3 Touring. Right. And a 911R turned up, and and everything from 356s all the way through to 992s, and they had 150 cars turned up.
Is that Benzene or whatever it's called, cafe?
Yes, that was it.
I've seen that. That looks like a great. They have some great events there. Great cars and coffee events.
Oh, they do, and as I say, the amount of cars turned up, and they tried to make you had to pre-register. But about 100 cars were supposed to come, but it was about 150 cars turned up. It was a fun morning.
Yeah, logistics nightmare for them, I guess. So too many people. Too many people.
Yeah, that was the thing, and people were taking an hour and a half to get their coffee.
All right, David, let me just tell people your Instagram so people can follow and have a look at your car, because you've been posting some new images up there. I'm sure you're going to keep posting more. So if you want to go and follow David on Instagram, it's at 911touring, at 911touring. So go and have a look at David's Instagram. Give him a follow. Tell him you heard his story on PorscheCooled. He's got quite a few shots of his 911 Touring there, looking very, very cool. I really do like the black with the silver wheels. I like going back to that classic. I've really got this thing back for silver wheels again, David. Just plain silver wheels, not black, not platinum, just silver. I think they look really cool on a 911.
Yeah, well, when I bought that car, it was black on black on black. And I said to the dealer, I don't like the black wheels. He said, "Don't worry, we'll spray them." So we sprayed them the Porsche silver
Oh,
color.
Right. They were actually black. Then the previous owner had sprayed them black, or they came from the factory black?
No, they were factory black wheels, and I didn't like the black on black. It just looked a bit Darth Vader-ish. And I decided we sprayed them silver. So he did it as part of the deal. He just said, "Look, I'll throw that in and we'll get that done." So he got that done.
Yeah, the one that you've got, the image you've got in the still at Porsche Den, the one in the dealership with the silver, it looks great. Looks really good. Great stance. Great. The front of that Touring is just beautiful. The front of the Touring is just beautiful. Those arches. It's a great car, David. You've got a great 911, that's for sure. David, that's it. We're finished. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for telling your PorscheCooled owner's story.
Thanks, Michael. It's been a pleasure being on.
And I'm really looking forward to meeting up in the future, and I can show you my base Carrera and see how it compares to your Touring.
I'll give you a drive. Steve as well.
Steve, are you listening? I'll talk to Steve about that tomorrow. David, it's been great. Thank you so much. It was really good to catch up at last. Like I said, we've been chatting, tell the listeners, we've been chatting on and off for quite a while now, so it's really good to catch up. And thank you for coming on last minute. I kind of just told you a couple of days ago that I needed someone to come on, and I thought of you as the first person. So thank you so much, David.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, everyone. That's it for today. Thanks for listening to the PorscheCooled Podcast. That's Owner Stories number 61 with David coming in from Hunter Valley in New South Wales in Australia. 901.2 GT3 Touring, black, beautiful car. And before that, David owned the 911 Carrera T, another really good 911 from the 991 generation. All right, everyone. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.